Hello and welcome. This is our lecture for chapter 1. I am doing a different format where I'm not utilizing the video camera. I'm just doing an audio recording over our lecture, but you can still see the lecture. That way the upload goes faster than the last one. I'll try my best to do video uploads just so we have some face-to-face contact, but what I'll do is maybe I'll keep those to 5 minutes, make them brief updates and just reminders, or maybe show you a couple of key things if you need help navigating, or if I get frequently asked questions, then I'll use the video for that. So playing around, stick with me. We're all on this journey together. So in this first chapter, it's really the overview. It's the introduction to nutrition. It's a really great foundation for the rest of the class. So, Okay, this is fun. I'm playing around with this. Okay, here are our learning objectives. I know it's really wordy, but as we go through, I'm going to be hitting on all of these, basically the main components of a healthy diet, different nutrition and food terms that are typically or frequently utilized, 5 factors that influence what we eat, identify factors that influence how many calories that we intake and burn, the function of those calories, and the dietary references. Explain how food is digested and absorbed, which is really fun. Give examples of how a chef may run a sustainable restaurant, that's towards the end, and identify really reliable sources of nutrition and health information. Alrighty, so why is nutrition important? Well, some things that I include that your book didn't include is that half of American adults have one or more preventable diseases. So that means preventable meaning if we could change our diet and change our and increase our exercise, these diseases could be prevented. So these are things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, some cancers. So if we're able to eat a nutrient-dense diet, which we go over what that means, then that means that we have lower risk for contracting certain diseases such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, even kidney disease. The Mayo Clinic estimates 70% of Americans take at least one prescription drug. Yikes. I once had a patient that was on 22 different medications. And so one of the best things that I was able to do as a dietitian was review those medication lists, and I found that there were duplicates. So I had him talk to his doctor, and he was able to reduce it down to 11. I mean, that's still a lot, but it's much better than 22. Lastly, in addition, more than 2 out of 3 adults is overweight or obese. What that means is their BMI is over 25, as well as 1 out of every 3 children. So I always say that there's a lot that you can take from these classes. One of the biggest things that I think we can all take away from nutrition is it's really practical, and you can share this with your friends and your family. So I highly, highly recommend taking notes and retaining this information because it's useful even outside of this class. But it is very useful also if you are going into the culinary degree. Give me one quick second. I'm just going to take a sip of water, a sip of coffee, and keep it going. One thing to mention with playing around with all these different apps that allow for online education, I may try WebEx in future, so then we can do a live lecture and then we can do comments and discussion in real time. So I will play around with the app called WebEx and see if we can get that going as well. So that way you're not just watching the lecture alone, but you can see me, you can chat amongst your peers. So we'll try it all out. We'll definitely experiment, play around. All right, so what is nutrition? It's a science that studies nutrients found in foods and their action in the body. Nutrition also explores the relationship between nutrients and disease, as well as why we choose various types of diets we eat. And what do we mean when we say nutrients? Well, those are those nourishing substances in food that provide energy and promote the growth and maintenance of the body. So there are 6 different groups or 6 different categories of nutrients. This is really a simple breakdown, and this is how we continue to go through the course. Each chapter is broken down into these 6 nutrients, and we get to dive deep. Today is just an overview. So we've got carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, vitamins and minerals, and water. We're going to go into more detail, like I said, in the future chapters that discuss each group specifically. So there's a difference between macronutrients and micronutrients. When we say macronutrients, we're referring to carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, which provide calories. As you'll see, carbohydrates and proteins provide 4 calories per gram, and then fats provide 9 calories per gram. And then micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. These do not provide any calories. One thing to know that the textbook notes that I think is interesting, alcohol supplies 7 calories per gram, but it is not a nutrient because it does not promote growth or maintenance of the body. All right, so these acceptable macronutrient ranges, you can use these percentages to break down, like let's say when you create your MyFitnessPal, we'll just use a really generic, this is not many people need 2,000 calories, but okay, so let's say that your MyFitnessPal says you need 2,000 calories. Well, you can multiply 2,000 by these percentages, and then that will give you a nice ratio and a breakdown of how many calories would you would need from each group. So it's kind of a cool way of looking at it, and I provided an example. So here, if you did, it looks like I did 20% and 20%, so 20% protein, 20% fat, which leaves 60% of your calories coming from carbohydrates. So that's an example of the breakdown. There's other things called the DRIs, the dietary reference intake. So that can be broken down into 3 different categories. The recommended dietary allowance. These are all just different recommendations. So I'll go over them, but really they're not always utilized, but it is good to know in case you're looking at nutrient values and they're using one over the other. So RDA, how much you need to take, how much nutrients, you need to take in on a daily basis. The adequate intake is the intake value used when an RDA cannot be established because there's not enough scientific evidence. So it's kind of like our best guess. And then tolerable upper intake, this is mostly used with micronutrients such as vitamins and minerals, because what happens is a lot of times people are feeling like, I'm not getting adequate nutrition from food, so why don't I supplement, and I start taking all these supplements. Well, there's a tolerable upper intake. If you take more than what is recommended, then this can cause toxicity. So you got to be really careful. If you ever have questions about supplements, feel free to email me or message me. We can always go over that. So what's really interesting is the American diet. It has been referred to as SAD, like the standard American diet. It's pretty sad. It's like, it's such a bummer. I don't want our diet to be referred to as SAD. But that's typically because, it's low in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and dairy. And it's high in calories, sodium, saturated fat, refined grains, and added sugars. So all of these things right here, having too many calories, salt, another term for sodium, saturated fat, refined grains, and added sugars, all of that contributes to those preventable diseases I was talking about earlier: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and kidney disease, and even some cancers. So we really want to flip these two. We want our diets to be high in vegetables, fruits, whole grain, and dairy, because they provide all these great nutrients, which we get into later. But if you see, I have my plate right here. This is a great starting ground. Whenever I tell people to look down at the plate, you want it to be colorful, and the more colorful it is, like the more fruits and vegetables you have, the better, the more healthy it is, because fruits and vegetables have phytochemicals, which are antioxidants, can protect you against certain cancers. So the next slide is just going over what I said. We want a healthy diet, and what that looks like is a diet that's high in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, low fat or no fat dory, seafood, beans, and peas. And I feel like this textbook does a really great job at breaking each category down and giving you examples of what does that all mean. We also want our diet to be low in red and processed meats. I go over why that is later. Sugar, sweetened foods and drinks, refined grains, and alcohol. And here it says 2 drinks for men per day and 1 drink per day for women. This is like a healthy intake. And even here I included a chart where it goes over exactly what a drink looks like. I know for some of us a drink looks way more than this or way more than that, but this is the standard and what this is referencing. Next, water. A lot of people underestimate the use of water. It's super duper important. Most people wouldn't know, but water aids in digestion and absorption. Circulation, what we mean is blood circulation. A lot of our blood is made up of water. And lubrication of body joints, which most people don't think about. Also tissues, also think about your eyes, like think about, there's so many areas of your body that need water. On average, this is like a really standard. So if anyone out there wants to start increasing their water intake, this is a really good standard. So about 2.5 liters for women and about 3.5 liters for men. There's also other breakdowns. You can do 1 milliliter per calorie. So we'll use the 2,000 calorie example again. If you require 2,000 calories, then that means 2,000 milliliters of liquid or water, which is 2 liters. So, it's a rough estimate. Everybody, there's a lot of different estimates. 3.5 liters for men, for example, will translate to roughly 1 gallon. So if that's easier for you to remember, go about it that way. All right, our body is made up of 50 to 60% water and 15 to 25% fat. So I really like this breakdown, but the really big thing is 50 to 60% water. So please increase your water intake, all of us. Like, let's do it. Next, carbohydrates. So in carbohydrates, you're going to see that it's broken down into sugar, starch, and fibers. There's another chapter that we're going to go like really hardcore into it. So carbohydrates function as the body's primary source of energy. This is very important, and we're going to return to that later. Fruits and vegetables. As I was saying, they have phytochemicals. You can also refer to them as antioxidants, and these compounds are only found in plant foods. And these promote health and protect you from disease. I also refer to them as superfoods. Whenever anybody asks me, like, what's a good superfood? I always tell them fruits and vegetables for the win. Yes, like none of us can ever get enough of fruits and vegetables. And for anyone who's wondering, the recommendation for vegetables is 3 to 5 cups per day. And for fruit, it's 4 to 6 cups per day. So if we can get that, we're in good shape. All right, essential nutrients. These cannot be made by the body, so you have to get them from foods. And here when it says examples, vitamins and minerals, we can get all of our essential vitamins and minerals from fruits and vegetables. We can get them from whole grains as well. And when I say whole grains, I mean like, we're going to get into it again more, but think this is what I mean by whole grains. But usually whole grain refers to when the carbohydrate has remained intact, which typically means that it has fiber. So we get our vitamins and minerals from plant-based foods. Next, so this little chart right here, it just breaks down the different types of phytochemicals you'll find in different fruits and vegetables. They typically tend to hang out in the similar colored foods, but as you can see right here, there's all kinds of different colors going on. But up here, this is mostly orange and red colored. This is kind of yellow, but like orangish pigmented foods. So here it breaks down some of the foods that you'll find, and these are the names of the phytochemicals. And as you can see, these are all fruits and vegetables. So fruits and vegetables for the win, like I said. Vitamins and minerals. All right, so like I said, these do not contain calories, but they are nutrients that help with regulating body processes, maintaining the body and how the body functions. It allows for growth and reproduction. All right, protein. So we really only need 15 to 20% of our total calories coming from protein. I know a lot of people feel like I need to get more protein in, or I'm not getting enough protein in. Seriously, once you go through and I believe MyFitnessPal calculates this all for you, but if you ever needed me to like calculate it on the fly for you, I could do that. Most of us are getting the proper amount of protein that we need. Protein is part of every cell, tissue, and organ in the body. What I tell people is protein are the building blocks of the body. So really, protein is there to help us with maintaining those different functions in the body and retain our tissues and muscles. But common misconception, the only way you can gain muscle is by exercising and lifting weights, by utilizing your muscles. This is how you build muscle. If you intake a lot of protein, you will not build muscle. Intaking a lot of protein is the same as intaking a certain amount of any kind of food, which means too many calories, which means we can gain weight and not in the form of muscle. So we talk about that in another chapter, but I always like to bring that up. Common misconception. Animal foods are good sources of proteins. Later on in these chapters, we'll also go over plant-based sources of protein as well. Really cool stuff. Proteins are present in smaller quantities in plant foods such as grains, beans, and vegetables. I know I'm going through this kind of quickly, and I apologize for that in future. Just let me know and I will slow down. The only reason I feel like I'm going through is because I feel like we're covering the ground and I'm giving you a good sense of the layout and the material that's on each slide. Additionally, feel free to pause, take as many breaks as you need, take as much notes as you need. Don't forget that we do have 2 tests in the semester, so definitely be thinking about that and take notes, review as often as you can. And read the chapters, that will really help you. Okay, so fats and oils. So fats and oils. So one way to think about fats and oils is healthy fats versus unhealthy fats. So I tried to break them up. On the left is healthy, on the right is unhealthy. So here you're going to see olive oil, you're going to see different kinds of oils. This grapeseed oil, this looks like maybe like a walnut oil. And then here you've got some fatty fish. So any of the any of the fats and oils that contain omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9 is what you want to intake. Nuts and seeds, olives, avocado, coconut. But you want a higher ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 and 9. So the more omega-3s we can get, the better. Unhealthy fat. So this is what is called saturated fat and trans fat. So saturated fat and trans fat are mostly found in fatty. So when you're looking at the meat and you're looking at the marbling, that's fat, and it's typically 100% saturated fat. Poultry skin, the fat in milk, cheese, or ice cream, that's what gives it a good taste, is the fat that's in it. Butter and mayonnaise, and then these ones are more what have trans fat in them. Baked goods, fried foods, margarine, salad dressings. And when I'm talking about this, baked goods, if we're making it at home, we're in control of the type of fats and oils that we're using. But if we're buying quote unquote baked goods from the store that have been hanging out on the shelves, they have to utilize some form of fat that's not going to go rancid right away, right? How is it that those quote unquote baked goods can stay good? You can still eat them and they've been on the shelf for weeks or months. That's because in them a lot of times is trans fat. Trans fat is a type of fat that is not broken down easily, and the body does not break it down either. So that is what extends their shelf life, but that's not good for us. It's not, our body can't digest it. So something to keep in mind. I have a lot of family members that eat Hostess foods and other foods like muffins and brownies and things that are on the shelf for long periods of time. And I just want to let you guys know that those typically have trans fat, and that's why companies use trans fat, is because it can extend the shelf life. All right, so ideally our diet should be moderate. What that means is we avoid excessive amounts of calories or excessive amounts of any particular food or food group or nutrient, except for, you guessed it, fruits and vegetables. Our diet should be balanced. What does that mean? Choose foods to provide essential nutrients in the right proportions. So we can have a lot of fruits and vegetables, but we want to take it easy on, let's say, foods that are really high in saturated fat. So we want to really watch our saturated fat intake. A diet that's high in saturated fat contributes to heart disease. So that's why we say that. Foods that are high in refined grains and simple sugars are a risk factor for developing type 2 diabetes. So we have to think about that as well. And we want our diet to be varied. We want a variety, eat a wide selection of foods. I do stress that this is a journey and we're all at different levels. And, so if this is like new for some of us and we're hearing this for the first time, This can be a lot to digest, for lack of better words. It can be a lot to intake. So, if you ever have questions, one thing that I say is, take it one step at a time, little by little. I always remind people to just be patient with themselves if you're going on a health journey, because I got my degree in nutrition, and that took me 5.5 years. And for the first 4 years of that degree, I was still not applying any of this knowledge to my personal life. So, you do what you can. If you're on starting that health journey, be patient. It's a journey. And so I tell people that all the time. And it's a consistent journey. I mean, if we want to be healthy, we have to work a little bit at it each day, eat a little healthier every day, exercise a little bit every day. We go over specific recommendations for diet and exercise. So you can check that out as we progress through the class. And like I said, if you ever have questions, feel free to ask me. All right. So what is a calorie? Well, it's a measurement of energy in food. The scientific description of a calorie is that 1 calorie raises the temperature of 1 kilogram of water to by 1 degree Celsius. So pretty interesting. We can test it out in a lab, and that's how we get all those nutrient information that's on the backs of our food labels. You can see it abbreviated as kcal. You see that all throughout my slides. It means kilocalorie. When you hear calorie, it really is a kilocalorie. Technically, the C should be capitalized. So, yeah, it's interesting. Look at that. Just burned 2,000 calories. That's the last time I leave brownies in the oven while I nap. All right. So the number of calories we need, it varies. There's different factors that affect our basal metabolic rate. So your basal metabolism, it's about 2/3 of the total energy needs for individuals who are not very active. There's other things that affect the amount of calories we need, how physically active we are, and then there's a little bit of the calories we have to think about. Its use is energy used to digest and absorb food. It's about 10% of our total energy needs. So when you do your MyFitnessPal account, when you set that up, it should ask you, excuse me, your height and weight. And then it'll base your calories off of that. I think it asks about your physical activity as well. It's been a while since I used it. If you want me to, I can set one up too in case you need some help navigating MyFitnessPal. All right, so basal metabolic rate depends on a lot of factors. Your gender, your height, exercise, like how much you exercise or how little we exercise, age, temperature, yes, like the temperature outside, yes, okay. Smoking and caffeine, definitely. Growth, fever and stress, sleep, all these things affect our basal metabolic rate. So here it says physical activity accounts for 25 to 40% of our total energy needs. Here's our slide on finding reliable nutrition and health information. So if you're really digging what we're talking about and you want to go beyond this class or this lecture, or you want to go beyond your textbook, you can visit these websites. I highly recommend them. I use them in my practice. So one of them is eatright.org. The other one is nutritionfacts.org. Eatright.org, you can go, there's a search bar. If there's something that you're interested in, like let's say your family member has heart disease or type 2 diabetes, kidney disease, polycystic ovarian syndrome, like different diseases, you can actually type in the search bar and it will give you different handouts. So that's pretty cool. There's also a function on there. If you want to start working with a dietitian, you can go in there and search find a dietitian. And that's a really cool resource. You'll find me there. I don't know how to take myself off, so I'm still there, but I'm not currently practicing anywhere except for teaching. So that's really funny. Eventually I'll figure out how to take myself off. And then nutritionfacts.org is really cool. It was started by a doctor named Dr. Michael Greger. Normally dietitians and doctors butt heads because dietitians are the nutrition experts, and have gone to school for more than 4 years, most of us, studying nutrition only. And the majority of medical schools only maybe provide one nutrition class in the entire time that this person is going through their doctorate school. So medical school. So let's say medical school minimum is 4 years, and then you've got a year of residency or 2 years of residency, or you need a few more years in your specialty. Of that entire program, most of the time it's not a required class to take a nutrition class. It's not always offered, and if it is, it's usually in one class. So dietitians really are the experts. So anyways, sorry, I digress. But anyway, nutritionfacts.org, he actually, as a doctor, the really cool thing he does is he goes through different research articles and he breaks them down and explains what the research findings are. That's really cool. Not a lot of people are doing that. And then page 31 in your textbook also provides websites with reliable nutrition information. Next. Okay. Questions to help judge the quality of nutrition and health information. So before you go on a website, think about who's sponsoring this website. Think about who wrote the information. What are their credentials? Can anybody write and post on there? Does the website make claims that are too good to be true? That's really, that is very common to sell you a product, so be on the lookout for that. Is your privacy protected? And then think about the website. Look at the design of it. Are there ads everywhere, or does it look like it's an old format? Typically reliable nutrition or health information is on a platform that's monitored and up to date. Excuse me. So if any website looks really old and hasn't been touched or updated in a while, I would avoid it. All right, so now we're kind of getting into the nitty gritty. A big word for this is pathophys, the pathophysiology of nutrition. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to take a couple sips of water here. This is usually around the time that I ask if anyone has any questions. Like I said, I'm sorry that we can't be more interactive. I will do my best to try and get the WebEx and see if that works. It may or may not. My other issue with the WebEx is, let's say we do have a full lecture that's an hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours. I don't know how well that video is going to save or how it will be uploaded. If my 30-minute video took 6 hours to upload, I can only imagine how a long lecture will take, which is also partially why it may feel like I'm going fast. One thing I can do, just let me know if you'd like. I can make these slides available on Canvas, so you can check those out if you want. Just let me know. For now, I'm just doing videos, but as soon as people say, having the slides would be beneficial or helpful, then I'll upload them. All right. So digestion, what do we mean by that? The process by which food is broken down into its components in the GI tract with the help of digestive enzymes. Absorption, the passage of digested nutrients through the walls of the intestines or stomach into the blood where they are transported to the cells. Metabolism, all the chemical processes by which nutrients are used to support life. And probiotics, live bacteria, and yeast that benefit the digestive system and keep it healthy. Good sources are yogurts and fermented foods. So these are different terms that are helpful to know, just so you understand how food and the nutrients in food become broken down and absorbed into the body and then utilized for the body's functions. So what happens when you eat? Your food enters your mouth. It encounters some salivary glands with some starch digesting enzymes. It goes down your esophagus into your stomach, and here in your stomach it gets churned all the way around. It continues to get broken down. So there's mechanical digestion that's happening in the mouth as you chew and you break food down into smaller parts. There's a little bit of chemical digestion, if you will, because the enzymes that are being released, it's only starch digesting. That means there's in your saliva, there's enzymes that help break down carbohydrates. And then it's called salivary amylase, in case anybody was interested. It goes down, the esophagus into the stomach. And here there's more mechanical digestion that's happening. Your body or your stomach is moving food around and breaking it down as well. See, churns and mixes food, secretes acid and protein digesting enzymes. So now your proteins are being digested here in the stomach. Boop, it pops out into the duodenum, which is the beginning of the entrance of the small intestine. And this is your small intestine. So it's like moving all around. And then it's going to go into your large intestine. Your large intestine is going to move your food around some more. So in your small intestine, digestion is happening and absorption is happening. Then as food moves to the large intestine, you're absorbing some water, some vitamins and minerals, and you're moving the food out. It's beginning its descent right here into the, just so you know, your large intestine is broken into your colon and rectum. So it comes over here, boop, and it comes out. So waste. So that's food, right? So this is, and your food is evacuated. While all this is happening, your auxiliary organs right here, your liver, your pancreas, your gallbladder are also at work during this entire process. Pretty cool stuff. We have another, there's in another lecture, we're going to go over this in more detail, but I just like to go through it because I just think it's so fun. But that's me. I'm a nutrition nerd. That's why I love to teach. All right. So nutrition and food terms to know. I think it's really good to know these terms because a lot of times these terms get thrown around a lot and the definition isn't always provided. So whole foods, what do you mean by that? Foods that are found in nature, such as, I like that it says nature, it's kind of vague too. Eggs, fruits and vegetables, beans, peas, whole grains. So these fresh meat and milk. So these are foods that can be quote unquote grown and raised, right? So we can grow plants, right? So we can put seeds into the ground, water them, and up comes our produce. And then we can raise livestock, so cows that provide milk, cows that can provide meat, chicken that can provide meat, chicken that can provide eggs. Well, hens, they lay the eggs. But anyway, so, there's a lot that's going on here in this definition. What do we mean when we say processed foods? Is foods prepared using milling, cooking, freezing, canning, dehydrating, or culturing with bacteria. Examples include bread, cookies, cereals, sauces, soups, baking mixes, frozen entrees, pasta, and snack foods. So we want to try and not eat as much processed foods. Why? Because they typically tend to be high in salt, sugar, and fat. And a lot of these foods we can make, like bread. I'm sure you have to take a pastry class. I know I did with Chef Rudy. Okay, anybody else take any classes with Chef Rudy? Wow, he is so knowledgeable and extremely scary. It was a great experience and I learned a lot, but dang. So we can make our own bread. We can bake our own cookies. Cereal, I've never tried to make cereal, so that one, not sure. We can make our own sauces, right? Tomato sauce, gravies, hollandaise. We can make the sauces. We can make soups, we can get really intense and make our own vegetable stock, chicken stock, beef stock, and utilize that when we're making our soups, right? And we can put beans, we can cook beans. We can do a lot of these things from scratch, but why don't most of us? Because a lot of us don't have the time, or a lot of us don't have the knowledge, or a lot of us don't have the capabilities, depending on what we have available in our kitchens. So for most of us, it's easier to just buy it already prepared. But the more that we can make food from scratch, the healthier it will be for our body. So we went over this, but what I like is this is a nice visual. Whole foods, processed foods. Look at it, it's so bright and lovely. This is like, kind of dull and boring. All right. Natural foods. This word gets thrown around a lot too. Natural means there are no added colors, artificial flavors, or synthetic ingredients. Isn't it nice that there's actually a definition? But then again, you have to still be mindful and careful of the different definitions or not definitions, but like how food companies are using the word. Because a lot of times natural can be put on the front of a be put on the front of a package to try to sell you something that may or may not be healthier. I hate that. One of the things that I really like to do, and maybe I can figure out how to, like, doing a video of it, but like looking at different like food labels, looking at different packaging, just so we can become smarter and like more aware of how to discern what's healthy versus what's not healthy. Natural meat or poultry means it does not contain any artificial ingredients or added colors and are minimally processed. Organic, there's a definition. At least the USDA has a definition. So this seal has a definition. There are other seals, there are other types of organic. This one has a definition. I'm not sure about the other brands. Like for some brands, when they say organic, it means like 70% or more is organic. But that's why I like to do this definition, because it has one. If you go to the USDA website, you can read up on more stipulations. So organic food is processed without using conventional pesticides, petroleum-based fertilizers, or sewage sludge-based fertilizers. Okay, is that scary to read or what? You know, for them to have to put that in their definition, I'm just thinking, okay, if it's not organic, is my food being grown in petroleum-based fertilizers or sewage sludge-based fertilizers? What does that even mean anyway? Scary times we're living in, right? Don't even know what's going into our food. Bioengineering, and then ionizing radiation. Organic farms must be inspected annually. All organically raised animals may not be given hormones or antibiotics and must have access to a pasture. So that's the definition. And also, in order for foods to get this particular seal on their food, this means that the food has to be at least 95% organic for it to use this seal. That's kind of nice, kind of a little peace of mind, right? So there's a lot of factors that influence our food choices. I know it, you know it, you probably know a lot of these things. You probably paid attention to the flavor of the food, the texture of the food, the mouthfeel of the food. Other aspects we kind of touched on: cost, convenience. For some people, it's nutrition. Some people really want the quote-unquote healthiest, most nutritious foods, and that's an influence in their food choices. For example, I have friends that are big fans of kombucha. Kombucha is a great fermented drink that can provide good bacteria in your gut. Me, on the other hand, blech. Kombucha tastes nasty. For any of the people who are out there who are kombucha lovers, no offense, do you enjoy your kombucha, but I'm gonna be over here enjoying like sauerkraut or yogurt because I cannot stomach kombucha. I mean, if you have a good brand recommendation, I'm more than willing to try again, but the 3 brands that I've tried, I did not like it. It's just too much. It's just too intense of a flavor. Okay, sorry, I digress. I hope that you don't mind that I'm myself when I am doing my lectures. How you get me virtually is how I am in person, so let me know, but this is just who I am. I try to be authentically me, and I try to keep this fun and upbeat and lighthearted because, you know, who wants to sit through a boring lecture, right? And so, sorry, I want my face to be there so it's a little less boring. Maybe it's not. Maybe you prefer my face isn't there. So, I don't know. We'll play around. We'll try different things. Okay, I continue. Demographics, so it depends on, you know, your socioeconomic status. It depends on like how much the area that you're living in, what's nearest around you. Sometimes people are living on what's called food deserts, which means the nearest grocery store is many miles away, and so some people have to choose from whatever's available around them. Sometimes it's a gas station, sometimes it's a dollar store, you know, and so you kind of have to work with what you got in that area. Culture and religion. Some cultures and religions restrict certain foods. We already went over that. Social and emotional influences. How many of us have been on those days where we're really upset? For me, I don't eat at all. And for other people who are upset, they eat a lot. And so that does influence our food choices. Or say you're having a bad day. I know when I've had a bad day and I really feel like I need to pick me up, I have gotten a cinnamon dolce frappuccino with whipped cream, like going all in. For some of us it's ice cream. When it says social influences, hey, example, you got with your friends to the movies, and you're like, oh, I already ate dinner, but I feel obligated to get a popcorn and a soda because everyone around me is doing it. So that's an example of social influence. That might be, oh, I ate really healthy today, but I'm going to a kid's birthday party, and I know there's only going to be pizza and chicken wings, and I'm kind of gonna want to get down on some chicken and pizza wings, or pizza and chicken wings, or else I'm gonna feel left out, or because it is really tasty and I do really like those foods. So that's an example of a social influence. Marketing and media, this is huge. What are we seeing on Instagram, Facebook? What are we seeing on TikTok, Twitter? What are we seeing on television, on our favorite YouTube channels, on her Hulu, on Netflix? Any marketing and media influences our food choices as well. Environmental concerns. For some of us, we choose certain foods based on being more environmentally friendly, depending on the availability. As some of you may have noticed, you go to the stores these days and you can't get bread. So you got to work with what you got. Some stores don't have pasta. Some stores don't have certain meats or dairy. So you kind of have to work with what's available. I know for me, I'm keeping it really simple. I'm eating a lot of produce because fruits and vegetables are still in abundance. So vegetable stews, roasted vegetables with like a little side of chicken, or beef or fish. I've been going through the frozen sections. So I just go with what's available. Canned tuna, canned fruits and vegetables. I use canned fruits and vegetables, and I use frozen fruits and vegetables. They're great on the fly. The only thing with the canned fruits, you want to try and get in water or 100% juice. You kind of try to want to avoid the syrups because they're higher in sugar content. If you had nothing else, like say at the grocery store all there was fruit that's packed in syrup, what you could do is you could drain it and then rinse that fruit like in a colander, and that gets rid of some of the excess sugar. All right, familiarity. Some of us are very comfortable with our type of food that we eat, right? So let's say you've never had Indian food and your friends invite you out. Well, you might be looking down and seeing a lot of different curries and a lot of different textured meats and side dishes that you're not used to, or vegetables that you're not used to, like okra. And so that's just one example. There's a lot of different vegetables that are used in Indian cuisine, as I know many of you probably know. And so if you go and you're not familiar, you might be hesitant to try some of that food. You might be hesitant to even return back to that food, that establishment. So just things to keep in mind. And then habits. Habits is a huge indicator and impact of our food choices. All right, so flavor. Okay, so if it doesn't taste good, we're not going to eat it, right? Our book includes in its definition of flavor taste, smell, texture, mouthfeel, temperature, sounds. Flavor is a combination of all the five senses: taste, smell, touch, sight, and sound. Often for us, the most important consideration when choosing something to eat is taste. I really like this slide. So cute. Okay, really interesting. We have about 10,000 taste buds on our tongue, cheeks, throat, and roof of our mouth. If any of you like Chopped, it's really fun to see the chefs watch their faces when they're trying foods. They're swirling the food around, they're tasting it, they're making weird noises and motions with their lips and mouth. So it's really interesting, but they're really getting all the taste buds. They're moving that food around and hitting all their different taste buds. So pretty interesting. Taste buds for each sensation are scattered around the mouth, yes. Children under 6 have more taste buds, and adults over 50 start to lose taste buds. Young children have more taste buds so they can often be picky eaters. And then I put this little note. From working with various demographics, this is not limited to children. There are a lot of adults that are picky eaters. And then another fun fact, the heat of hot peppers is felt not by the taste buds, but by pain receptors in the mouth that sense heat. Interesting. For some of you, you may have encountered the word umami. So there's 5 primary taste sensations: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. Umami provides a savory, sometimes meaty sensation. Umami taste receptor is very sensitive to glutamate, an amino acid found in proteins such as meat, fish, and milk, and in the flavor enhancer MSG. Umami flavor increases when salt is added. So ketchup is an example, soy sauce, and fish sauce. So cool stuff. Smell. Smell is very important to taste. Receptors in your nose can distinguish among about 10,000 scents. While cooking and while eating, you smell food. The sense of smell and detecting the aromas in wine are how wine is tasted. I don't know if any of you ever saw the documentary. I haven't checked lately if it's on Netflix still, but it's called Somm, and it's about these different people who are trying to become sommeliers. And it is really fascinating, all the different notes that they can pick up from smell and taste. So I always think that that's a really fun example of all these different taste buds and smell, that the senses that we have. All right, texture, mouthfeel. Typically, this isn't always the case, but typically textures that people like are crispy, juicy, creamy, tender, firm, and crunchy. Textures people generally don't like: tough, crumbly, lumpy, soggy, watery. Some of us like the crumble. I personally don't. It bothers me. I hate making a mess all over my face, all over my clothes, all over the table. So if any of you have ever had like a crumbly pastry, it's so frustrating. It gets everywhere, but that's just me. Textures influence whether you like the food, and also tells you whether the food is fresh. Interesting. Sight and sound. Okay, this is a cool little picture I took when I was a line cook. I forgot to mention, I did that for a little while. I was a line cook at B&B Ristorante, Mario Batali's restaurant, when it was open at the Venetian. I have experience as a line cook. I also have experience in private events. I worked with catering companies as well, so I have background in the culinary world as well. I forgot to mention that in my intro, but yeah, I forget that I've done these things, so we can relate on that level. I have a lot of fun still in my own personal kitchen, and I hope you do too. I hope that this degree is all that you hoped it would be. So color is very important. It tells you about the flavor and quality of the food. Consider the color, size, shape, consistency, and arrangement. Eye appeal is especially important for cold foods, but as you know, we start eating with our mouths. we start already imagining what that food would taste like by its appearance, right? We want our plate presentation to be on point because we already want our customers to be excited to dig into the food that we just presented them. Sounds can also be kind of a fun thing too. The sizzle of fajitas stimulate appetite along with sight. Sounds. I want to say, I know that there's some restaurants where people are like blindfolded. Okay, that's not my jam, but I can only imagine maybe what sounds they're hearing if they don't have sight. The other thing I was thinking is, I wonder if there are some top chefs, top 50 best restaurants. I'm wondering if any of those restaurants utilize sound. I want to say they do in some of the presentation of their food. So, all right, demographics. So when we say demographics, we just mean age, gender, education level, income, cultural background. This can affect the foods that we eat. Culture and religion, I mentioned that. We already went over that. All right, so sustainable food systems. What does this mean? Producing meat using many sources and has serious environmental consequences. Forests are cut down to create pastures. Sad. Livestock farms pollute water and air and produce manure and greenhouses. Yikes. Enormous amounts of water, fuel, fertilizers, and pesticides are required to grow livestock feed. Fertilizers require a lot of energy to make and wind up polluting waterways. So all of these issues are very important to a lot of farms and a lot of chefs who are thinking about the sustainability of our food and our planet, and are there better practices than the conventional ones that we're using right now? Could we get more bang for our buck if we switch processes? So pretty interesting things to think about. What is sustainable agriculture? It produces food without depleting the earth's resources, water, soil, fuel, for example, or polluting its environment. Is agriculture that follows the principles of nature to develop systems for raising crops and livestock that are like nature, self-sustaining. So I have Dan Barber. I have a little YouTube video at the end. I'll probably just put that on Canvas so you can watch it. It's just a little bit about Dan Barber, and it's from the Netflix show Chef's Table. I cannot remember which season he's in. I want to say season 1, but there's been a few seasons that have come out since, so it could be season 2. But I love Chef's Table on Netflix. If any of you have it and haven't checked out Chef's Table, oh my gosh, please do. It is the most inspirational. For me personally, I'm biased, but for me personally, it is so inspirational and gets me so pumped to go cook. It just gets me pumped to like go do life. All right, we're coming at the end, guys. We made it. 2 more slides. What is a sustainable food system? Sustainable agriculture is part of a sustainable food system. So that's what we just went over, right? In this last one, what is sustainable agriculture? And then what is sustainable food system? And it incorporates that. Sustainable food systems involve not only growing crops and producing livestock in a sustainable manner, but also processing, packaging, and distributing foods without depleting the earth's resources or causing excessive pollution. This is a hot topic. I've been teaching this class for 2 years, and I mean, now more than ever with the climate crisis, and previously a couple of years ago, the Paris Accord, the new Green Deal Act, and all these things, I mean, now is even more important for us to be thinking about moving forward. In a sustainable food system, food should be affordable, and workers such as farm workers should be making a living a wage. Definitely. Lastly, what are restaurants doing in terms of purchasing food? Chefs are sourcing local, farm-to-table food. So sourcing local means that they're speaking with their local farmers and local producers, local food markets, and trying to buy local. Buying organic foods, typically to make organic foods, they typically incorporate sustainable agriculture practices, so that's why that made the list. Buying sustainable fish, starting gardens to grow herbs and veggies, serving meals that are lower on the food chain, buying coffee and tea from sustainable operations, reducing bottled beverages. So pretty interesting stuff. And here's the YouTube channel I was telling you about, so I'll probably add that to Canvas so you have that available. All right, this completes chapter 1. I hope you liked it. Please email me and let me know what your questions are, or join me during our live chats on Tuesdays, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Again, if those live office hours do not work for you, I will also be available by appointment. Email me and let me know what's a good day and time for you, and we can make it happen. All right, have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.